Real estate has been talked about all morning. I don't think you guys were here in the morning. No. You were everyone said how happy they were with real estate in Vietnam. Maybe not. So what's interesting is if you look again from the public equity market perspective, banks are 39%, real estate is around 14 or 15, and obviously had been higher. And so I would suggest, as others would, is real estate from a public equity market, 14, 50%, it's the second largest sector. The reality is it has a disproportionate impact on sentiment, has a disproportionate impact on wealth, and just the overall economy. And so you can't talk about banking without talking about real estate. You can't talk about consumer sentiment. You can't talk about consumption or optimism without talking about real estate. And certainly there's a certain cultural phenomenon in Vietnam where everybody's first investment is property. Their second investment is property, and then they bury gold in the backyard of their property. And so property is culturally even more significant, I think, here than it is in many other places. So again, with that note, thank you guys so much for joining, because we can't talk about Vietnam without addressing what's happening in the property sector. So first question, we'll go to, who wants the first question? Okay. So actually, can you just give us a brief overview of your firm's business? Are there specific segments within real estate that are core to your growth strategy? And if you brought a slide, great. If you didn't, that's okay.
I'm from the Nam Nong Group. For us, actually, our activity are mainly in land development as well as in township developments. So as you can see from the slide up there, we have probably 600 over hectare of land bank. And we're focusing on the sector from affordable to the mid-market range. And that's what we do. So our business model, first part mainly on the land development. That means getting land ready for the township and all that. Usually we then sell down the stake to invite investors to come in. We have a few Japanese investors that have been partnering with us for the last 10 years. That will be the second stage of the business model, where we'll do the development itself together with the Japanese investor. That's the Nam Nong model. And we believe that we are targeting at the still growing market segment. I think a couple of statistics. One is that I think in terms of urbanization rate, Vietnam still relatively low at 39% relative to other cities that you see on the slide itself. We still have a way to go. We're targeting probably Vietnam will reach probably 60-something to even 70% in terms of urbanization rate. So there's still a way to go. And for sure, the growing middle class and the growing affluence and all that, I think many Vietnamese still have not realized their dream to buy their first quality homes. I think that's where we are targeting at, the mid-market, the upper mid-market, as well as the affordable range of houses. That we hope to cater to the growing affluence of the Vietnamese. And we believe that for the next few years, despite the difficult period over the last 3 years, we're going to, I think, still see some growing demand in the segment that we are in. Right. Thank you.
And again, you're a Vietnamese publicly listed company as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's...
I thought they know that.
Yeah, maybe not everybody. All right. And could you walk us through who is Gamuda?
Okay. I'm Angus Liew. I'm the chairman for Gamuda Land Vietnam operations. Gamuda is a company from Malaysia. We are listed in Malaysia. We are a $5 billion market cap company at this moment. And we do two business. One is engineering. We build infrastructures for countries like Australia, Malaysia, Taiwan. And the second business is real estate. In Vietnam, we started our operations since 2007. So we are here more than 15 years. Pay enough tuition fees to do the business. Yeah, still, that's why we think Vietnam is still a very good market after more than 15 years.
Well, and it comes down to, people are talking about, real estate needs to be project approvals improved, policy improvements, et cetera. Are the new laws that some have been passed, some have been suggested, are these new laws impacting your existing business? And as strong companies with solid fundamentals and financials, did these rules help you? Do they hurt you? And if so, why?
Okay. I will start to answer this question first, because currently we have 7 projects ongoing. So the new law obviously have good impact and bad impact on us. So some of our projects, we have the last mile. Last mile could be one year and more than that. So some of that will resolve with the new law. And some other approval is that we need to resubmit because of the new law. Yeah, so it's what somehow we are expected, because it always takes a year or so for the developer and also for the authority to understand the new law. But what we see is that some of the deadlocks has been entangled, some gray area has been addressed. But if you look back on the law on 2015, it actually took the new law to solve the problem that was in the old law. So I cannot predict what happened to this new law, but we are very positive. Some of the issues has been already resolved. If you look at the newspaper, they mentioned Gamuda land, and some of the issues have been resolved. But I think we need a bit of a time. 12 months from the implementation of the law will be a good time to understand that. Yeah, but one thing we also realize is that the National Assembly, the policy regulators, are quite fast in addressing the issues now. This is also very positive. Yeah, and before implementing the law, they have a lot of consultations, including people in the business like us. So I would say the law is helpful and it's positive. And one more thing that we see is that as a foreign players like us, it creates a level playing field for real estate players. A few years back, we started our expansions like 2021. It was impossible to get land in the projects and land in Vietnam. The locals are just so fast. People like Nam Long, they are very fast. But the things changed in 2022-23. Yeah, it was a good year for us because we start to see opportunities, and we managed to get more projects during these 2 years. What we see now is the law is also helping that. It's more difficult to be a developer now, and the law seems to protect the purchaser a lot more than the previous law. So it's good thing for the purchaser, not so good for us, but we see that it's an opportunity. Yeah, it's a level playing field. So that's what we like to see.
Lucas, the same question.
Yeah, I think like what Angus has said, I think the new law bring greater transparency, higher level of playing field. Greater transparency means not totally transparent as here.
Greater than opaque.
Greater than last time, but not greater transparency, level playing field. And also the new law actually serves to protect the end buying consumer a lot more relative to the old law. So all this to me is a good development for the industry. I think it makes the whole industry more sustainable and I suppose can last even a longer period of time. Short-term wise, when new things are introduced, definitely there will be impact on us. I think example will be now that I need sales license, and before I can get my sales license, I have to reach certain level of requirement, including displaying all my legal documents, that all the approval that I got onto the website, and show the end consumer that I have approval 1 to maybe 10, and that my project is ready for sale. And so that when the sales license is given means that you have done all that is required. But that will means that some of the projects that I intend to sell this year with the introduction of the new law in 1st August means that I won't be able to get the sales license by this year, which I would have to push it to next year. So those are short-term impacts. And of course, the new law also means the different computation of the land use fee, which we have our first ticket that came to us, I think much higher than we expected. But the good thing is that with the higher land use fee to be paid, it also means that they allow us to deduct higher resettlement costs that previously was not allowed, meaning that we have a higher bill, but we allow a higher deductible. The end result is that we pay higher, but slightly higher. So that is the current kind of impact on ours. So overall, I would say that as we go down the road, I think you will be, the new law will work into the equation that we work on, whether when we buy new land or whatever. I think all these will have to be factored in terms of maybe longer duration in terms to do the project, higher cost in terms to acquire the land, or higher land use fee to be paid, and so on and so forth. Once the equation has been factored into the whole thing, then I believe that the overall will bring more stability to the market itself. Yeah.
And that's what's interesting is I think, when you look at the policy, and it sounds like it's becoming more expensive to become a developer because of land use fees or even higher charter capital. One of the interesting things about Vietnam is it actually has undersupply relative to demand, and certainly in kind of affordable segments. Do these laws have maybe an unintended consequence of potentially further reducing supply in the near term because you have maybe fewer companies that are then able to purchase land and develop?
Maybe I answer first. Well, Gamuda land in Malaysia, we always call ourselves the town maker.
The what?
The town maker. So we do township. Okay. We wanted to do the same in Vietnam, but getting land is so difficult.
Wait, what is, maybe everyone may not know, I'm just saying this myself, what do you mean by township?
Well, township is a mixed development for what we do is that the smallest township that we are doing is about 82 hectares with all kind of facilities, not just residential. So that is what we are good at back in Malaysia. That's why we call ourselves town maker. But when we come to Vietnam, we started as a township maker together with Nam Long, long time back. Yeah, but it's just so difficult to get land, and we changed our strategy like 3 years ago. We focused on what we call quick turnaround projects, QTP, because it's just so difficult to get land. And coming back to what you say, yep, the entry level is higher, but it's also good because we see quality housing. Gone was the time when you can sell without a sales permit, you can get the money. Now with this law, you'll no longer be able to do it. I think it will affect the supply, but coming back to the law, they also introduced things like auction for the land. That is what we see the government can do to improve the supply.
And transparency too.
And transparency too, yeah. So we're seeing that coming, not in Ho Chi Minh City, but the cities surrounding Ho Chi Minh City. That is something that we would like to focus because it's much easier than applying for land to turn it into a residential area. So this is what we are looking for. We hope that the government can do more on that. But we start to see in other provinces they are doing it already. So yeah, for the land use right, is something to watch is that 15 they will announce the land price in Ho Chi Minh City. So we are still monitoring about it. But one thing we can be sure is that the price of the property will continue to go up because the law never make the business easier. Because
yeah, it's always easy to blame everything on the new law whenever it's introduced. But the fact remains that as the market develops, as the market mature, whether it's land prices or real estate prices will go up. So it happened here, it happened in China, it happened in most cities. So once the real estate industry reaches a certain level of maturity, actually it's going to be a game for the bigger player with deeper pocket or higher capital. So because it will no longer be a game that anybody can be a developer type. So as market develop, it's a game for the mid-sized to bigger-sized player. So as market develop, you will always see a consolidation in the market where the smaller player gets squeezed out of the market, the bigger player get bigger, and then the mid-sized people, maybe they have to merge together to become bigger in order to survive in the market. Because as real estate development, you no longer, when the market mature, is no longer a land and a development game. It's actually a capital and a financial game. So it has to put everything together. And this suited for bigger size company when the real estate prices reach a certain level. I think Vietnam has come to a stage and gone through a few rounds of crisis and came through it. I think it has reached a stage that there should be, we also see some consolidation in the real estate industry, where the player itself may end up forming to become a bigger player, or the smaller one gets squeezed out of the market, and the bigger guys get bigger, as we see down the road. So it's a game that has to be played with even bigger capital outlay. That's one thing that we will see in the market itself. Yeah.
And so, you know, earlier on in the morning, our chief economist talked about how, you know, 2024 GDP was really driven by exports and U.S. demand. U.S. economy is slowing down. In order for Vietnam to hit its GDP growth goal, kind of two things would have to happen. Number one, infrastructure spending. Number two, recovery in real estate. And that's more policy supported. So I guess the question there is, do you think 2025 will be the beginning of a new positive real estate cycle for Vietnam? Do the new laws support that? Has that already happened? Or do you need to see more supportive policies in 2025 to get real estate to be a bigger part of the economy?
Actually, other than residential demand, which is more looking for a shelter or house to stay, the rest of the real estate actually is very dependent on the economic development. So we're talking about shopping mall, we're talking about offices, we're talking about industrial, we're talking about warehouses, we're talking about data center, we're talking about hotel. All these actually, the demand for it actually are all derived demand. Actually, it depends a lot on the economic situation to derive the demand for factory, derive the demand for warehouses. So I think as the economy recover, as we move up the industrial ladder and all that, this form of property definitely will be in greater demand. I think that is something that we will have to factor in. So there will be a kind of like a delay effect when it comes to economic growth, and then there will be demand for certain level of real estate. I think back to earlier question about increasing the supply of land or introduced by the new land law. I think going forward, chances are there will be increased supply of land, more so by the fact that there will be enhanced infrastructure built by the new land law that allow the government to probably acquire land easier to build infrastructure, whether is it bridges or is it road or even the rail and all that. So which also means that over time the city will be able to grow to a bigger size in terms of economic distance to travel from the place to work. Say in Ho Chi Minh, probably people can even live in the nearby province and travel to Ho Chi Minh to work if we have enough highway, enough bridges to link everything together. Actually, that naturally increased the supply of accessible land to the economic circle of, say, Ho Chi Minh. So Ho Chi Minh may have a chance to become a mega city that people can live in the nearby province and still access Ho Chi Minh in terms of the other amenity and so on and so forth. So over time, that will increase the supply in terms of the Ho Chi Minh, in terms of the land that cater to the economic of Ho Chi Minh itself. So that's one thing that I believe that over time, with infrastructure development, supply is going to increase. Whether it's resulted from the new land law or not, but the new land law certainly make infrastructure development by the government easier in terms of they acquiring for public purpose in terms of, because otherwise they will take many years to even build the metro or many years to even build bridges or highway. So that are something that hopefully going forward it will improve over time.
I will do my best not to make a metro joke. But it is interesting how, you know, if Ring Road 2 was built, all of a sudden, you know, places that were not looked at as, you know, driving distance of Ho Chi Minh City, all of a sudden are then Ho Chi Minh City suburbs, you know, for real. So I think that is a very, you know, forward-looking comment.
I totally agree with Lucas, because it already happened in Hanoi. If you look at Hanoi, they already have Ring Road 2, Ring Road 3, Ring Road 2.5, 3.5 is all coming. So it actually expanded the locations, the supply, quite a lot. But also because of that, the price didn't go up that much because there's more supply. So coming back to your questions on the recovery, for Gamuda land, like what I said, the past 2 years has been good. We don't see the market was affected. The market was affected because just lack of supply. So from our experience, we launched one of our projects, Eaton Park, in May, and it was 95% taken up during the launch day. It's really amazing. We brought analysts here, and they were amazed by how is this happening.
What was the average price? I'm just curious.
Okay, we are selling at $5,000 and above per square meter. So a lot of people are skeptical before that, but the performance proved it wrong. So you might say that it's because of the location, but we also launched another project which is in Binchang, further than Ring Road 2. We achieved 90% absorption rate in 3 months.
I think that just gets back to the fact that it's undersupplied.
It's just undersupply, and the demand is still very healthy. So again, if there's more supply, I think the performance will be good. It's really not about weak demand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, and I always tell people not to introduce this, but I'm going to introduce it personally, so shame on me. Too often people make the comparison Vietnam, China, and you kind of have this, the headline says real estate crisis, but they're actually incredibly different. One is oversupply, ghost city. One is undersupply, just no product approval, no liquidity. But here's a question which came in, Pierre, thank you. Please comment on the corruption in the real estate sector and whether it has improved in recent years. Other people, companies, you can just say that. I don't know where to begin. This is why people ask questions anonymously.
I think, yeah, it's a bit more sophisticated now. I have to say that. Approval is still a bit long, but it's, yeah, you need to do business here long enough to understand that.
I will, that was a fantastic non-answer. He'll be running for office shortly in Malaysia. I think there's two things, and I think corruption can take many forms. And what's really interesting, I think that the challenge in real estate, I'm saying this as the non-real estate person, was project approvals, and you had people in the provincial government who were afraid to prove things. So in a weird way, it wasn't necessarily corruption, it was paralysis, because they were afraid that if they approved something, and then 5 years later someone came back and said, hey, you shouldn't have approved it, or you approved it at a value that was less than what it should have been, even if they actually did the right thing, they would get thrown into prison. And so they just said, you know what, I'm not going to approve anything, because therefore I'm taking no risk. And so oftentimes, part of the sand in the gears, it wasn't necessarily bad behavior, it was just not approving anything because people were so afraid. And so the anti-corruption thing, actually, people who were doing the right thing just said, I'm not even going to do the right thing because I'm still afraid that someone may come and judge me years later and say it was the wrong thing. And so I think part of what we've seen from the policymakers is basically saying you have to start approving things. Now, I don't think that eliminates all of the risk for the provincial authorities, but I do think it's important that we don't think the worst of everybody at every opportunity. Sometimes it was just a process, and I hope you'll agree with part of that anyway.
Yes, it's part of the process. Now what we see is that you definitely have to comply to the law to get approval, and it has taken a bit longer because more parties are involved. Now is a consensus among the party members. But it also means that it is carefully scrutinized. So once approval is out, we are quite confident that they will not get back to us and all this. So we see that is coming, and 3 years ago, it's very slow. But what our experience is that things are moving. We are getting approval out. Some of our projects are getting approval quite fast as well. Yeah, we are talking about Ho Chi Minh City. Places like Dong Nai and Bin Dung is also equally encouraging. Things are moving. That's what I can see.
And then, I'm not familiar enough with it. You mentioned it earlier about auctions, and so there is certain things that are becoming more transparent, correct?
I think you are rightly pointed out that I think since there be cramp down on the government official in terms of the corruption prop and all that kind of thing, I think that has made certain quarter more or less on a standstill, still in the sense that if you don't do anything, then you won't be accused of doing the wrong things. So to be on the safe side, then don't do anything. In a sense that because if you were to approve for any company, it will be the same as favoring certain company, whereas the rest are not doing anything. So, it's sort of like make things very difficult. But I think since the end of last year, which is on end of 2023 and beginning of 2024, we are starting to see things moving. That's why since beginning of this year, we seems to have some approval being processed. And like what Angus said, I think things are moving at a pace. Of course, there are still certain areas where the higher area of master planning doesn't gel with the next level, doesn't gel with the next level. So we're talking about like 1 to 10,000 master plan, don't gel with the 1 to 5,000, and then don't gel with what developer need to submit, which is 1 to 500. So that kind of issue, not one single developer can resolve, because you can't be giving out all your land for public space or public amenity just to satisfy the 1 to 10,000. So everybody need to put in an effort. So those things we can see progress, but we probably will take some time for the eventual solution to come for an area so that we can continue with some of the development. So I would say that if you talk about recovery, I would say that even 2024, things to start already moving. So we are gaining the momentum. So for sure, we are hoping for a better 2025. But do not see like 2025 is the start. But we see that things already start rolling. So let's see how much momentum we can.
So 24 is the start, maybe.
Well, 24 we see start moving. As you can see that there's limited launches because there's not much supply. Yeah. So whatever is being launched actually is quite well taken up. We also have certain phase of our development being launched this year. More or less, things are all taken up. So in a sense, we see that there's a lot of demand in the market. It's just that the right product can be put into the market, I suppose, then the market will just absorb it.
So yes, right. So if you think about it, in this answer may be predicated on each of your firm's segments, but where is the best opportunities? And so if you think of it, is it in Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, Da Nang? Is it in the emerging kind of satellite tier 2 cities? Is it, are there opportunities beyond Ring Road 2? Do you build next to the planned metro? How do you think about not what you're building today, but what's the land bank you want to acquire to develop 3, 4, 5 years from now?
Okay, for Gamuda land, our strategy in Ho Chi Minh City is within Ring Road 3, Ring Road 2. But I agree with Lucas, with the infrastructure expanding, the city will be bigger, and it's always, you can travel from other provinces. So for Gamuda land, we are looking also at the greater Ho Chi Minh City and greater Hanoi, and we have even project in Hưng Yen, and we're looking at Hai Phong as well. So these are the big cities, the real demand is there. These are the real cities, the real demand there. So if you look at the population growth and the supply that we have now, this year, the supply for Ho Chi Minh City is probably less than 10,000. But the population growth is more than that, 80,000. Yeah. So it makes sense that, the demand will be a lot more than the supply. Yeah.
I think our business model dictate where we will end up be, because we still are in township. We need big tract of land, 100 hectare and above. So you can see that we will never be in the Ho Chi Minh city itself. We will probably in a nearby province. So we are focused on a bit on Dong Nai, towards the direction of the new airport, and then also in the Long Chang area. So those are areas that we will go to. As to outside Ho Chi Minh, we are already have project in Can Tho, and it's a market that we will further develop along the Mekong Delta region. And in the north, we are not in Hanoi because it's too expensive for us. We are actually settling ourselves in Hai Phong. We have a couple of projects in Hai Phong. I think we are optimistic. So we are also careful not to go into new city, because real estate, you have to be very familiar with the city. So let's go with somewhere that you already pay tuition fee. So let's not repeat the tuition fee again. So Can Tho is where we are, and Hai Phong is where we are. Those are outside Ho Chi Minh, where we still continue to grow in Ho Chi Minh itself, meaning the surrounding region, and then in these two other cities that we are in. Yeah.
All right. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So we've got a question came in that I've already asked on the app here. Are there any other questions from the audience? Here again, okay.
Thank you very much. Under the new housing law, which has just come into force, the foreign ownership of at least certain real estate now seems permitted under Vietnamese law. Where do you see that evolving? Is it going to become something that happens in practice? Will the authorities drag their feet and make it hard, if not impossible? And if it's permitted, what do you see it will do to the domestic market?
Okay, just share our experience. For our project in Bin Dung, we already have the sales permit to sell to foreigners. So that's a landed property, 10% can sell to foreigners. I think the problem is in Ho Chi Minh City, because under the law, they need to say where is the national defense area, which obviously they cannot tell where's the national defense area. So there's a process to get the sales permit. Yeah, I think that we are monitoring it. But under the law, it's already available to sell to foreigners, even in the previous law.
And maybe talk about the different condominiums versus landed property.
Condominium is 30%, and landed property is 10% of the total, in a ward. So that is quite difficult to count. But 30% in a condominium is always in the law since 2015. So we have been selling to foreigners, but the last mile, that's what I say, getting the land use right ownership is still a bit of a challenge. Yeah, but the fact that we can get sales permit for foreigners in Bin Dung means that the law allocates for that. Yeah, and they need to just technically settle the problem for national defense area.
And I'm just curious, who, if you're looking at even selling to foreigners, is it kind of long-term expats, or is this more investment properties for folks from Hong Kong or Singapore or Malaysia?
So the law is that as long as you can use your passport, enter into Vietnam, you can buy the property. Yeah.
We'll talk.
But what we are advocating to the government is to have a long-term visa, so that for the foreigners to be able to stay in Vietnam 5 years, 10 years, that is what we are talking to the government.
So the issue is you're allowed to buy the property, you just can't live here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more after you buy the agreement.
Maybe, yeah. Either way.
All right. Any additional questions? Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.